Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock, episode 64. I'm Sophie, and this is Helen.
Hi guys.
So, Helen actually plays on my dad's soccer team. I was like, how do I introduce her? I'm like, well, that's how I met her. But it's really fun. He's coached at Furman my whole life, and so it's been sweet to get to know girls. But at this stage of life now, I'm closer to their age. And some of them just stick out, in particular, I'm like, that's what I want to be like. And so when I see you, you inspire me so much. I'm like, oh gosh, look what she's doing, look what she's doing. And so it's been sweet to have good examples of what it looks like to live in college and have fun, have a life, but also be rooted in Jesus. So I am very thankful that you came on.
I'm thankful to be here.
Time in your busy schedule, in my busy schedule, but we worked it out. So I appreciate it.
Love it.
But the first question I always ask is, what's your testimony?
Yeah. I feel like it alters every time I say it in front of people, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. So, grew up in South Georgia. My mom was Baptist. My father was Catholic.
Okay.
And when they met, they became non-denominational.
Okay.
So that's what I am.
Yeah.
And grew up in the church. Grew up going and knowing who Jesus was, and then I think I'd say in my freshman year of high school, I was like, I'm just not happy. I'm happy to the world standards, but I don't feel it.
Right.
So then I committed to my life to Jesus. And then my sophomore year, tore my ACL. Yeah. So that was fun. And that goes into, talk about that later. But I tore my ACL. It really took a toll on me because soccer was an idol.
Right.
It kind of had to be when I was growing up. Key to why I'm here.
Right.
And then I noticed that it can be taken away like that. Right. And so I just recommitted my life to Jesus again, because I realized that soccer wasn't everything, and that there's so much more to being here. My purpose is more than just soccer.
That's so good.
That's a little short.
I know that. But that's so cool. And it is how God does stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but it's almost he has a sense of humor. Oh, you're putting this above me. Okay, watch this. And he takes away so much. But then now, it's not like he gave it back, but he kind of gave it back to you, and you can use it for his good and still love it, but it doesn't have to be an idol.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
I have a new perspective on it for sure.
Yes.
And then I tore it again.
Yes.
And then God was like, "Psych, you're still idolizing it. Do it again. Try it again." Okay, God.
So today we're just gonna be talking about prayer, what it looks like to pray, how prayer brings unity, just a little bit of that. So when you feel closest to the Lord, what does your prayer life look like?
So I actually have a prayer journal that I try to write, keyword, try to write in. And when I'm closest to the Lord, I'm in it, all the time, just writing down my thoughts, what I want to talk to him about. For Bible study that I started for the girls team, we've done note cards now. Everybody writes what they want to be prayed for that week. And so I'll stick that in my prayer journal, which has helped me write. But sometimes I don't do that. Right. That's when I'm not as close. But
that's so good. I've found that too. I was saying, God doesn't ever answer my prayers.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm the only one. He doesn't ever answer my prayers. And then someone was like, maybe you're just not noticing it. So I started, once again, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I try to write down some of my prayers, Lord, this is stressful. Take this from me, and stuff like that. And then I can go back and look and be like, oh, he did take that. And it gives him the credit that he deserves, but sometimes I don't even notice.
Yeah.
So I found I had to.
It's honestly, it's so helpful to look back and see what you prayed for. Because again, sometimes you forget. Because sometimes you're like, oh, he didn't answer my prayer about something huge that's going to take time to answer. Right. But then all the little things
he did. Yes.
You know?
That's neat, because that's something I'm trying to work on too. Okay, when was a time you lamented to God and just cried out to him and felt like he heard you and answered that prayer? So lamented is kind of for people listening, it's kind of complaining in a way.
Yeah.
But it's complaining and trusting at the same time. So it's hey God, why did this happen?
Yeah.
But I'm trusting you that your plan is better. And even if you don't tell me, I still trust you. But just kind of crying out to God in desperation.
Yeah. Back to my
ACL.
ACL. So tore my ACL, and I was really confused because I was on track for big schools that I was looking at. little did I know Furman was going to be there, because Furman was always there.
Right.
Backtrack. My older sister played for Furman as well, and so I've known this family for a long time, and so Furman's always been there. But I had a lot of other colleges, and I remember I walked out into my backyard and just cried, and it was raining that day too, and I was done with it, because I cried out to him, and I was like, why?
Right.
I didn't do anything.
Right.
I don't deserve this. I don't understand.
Right.
Bigger picture now, like, I was idolizing it, and I didn't want that to admit that to myself.
Right.
But I was complaining and saying, God, like, why?
Yeah.
I don't. And every girl does that when they tear their ACL.
Yep.
And I thought I was rooted in him.
Right.
Little did I know that was not the. Yeah, it was.
And that's so cool. And then it just like kind of full circle.
Oh yeah.
Like, crying out to him, and then now
I'm. Oh my gosh, I'm playing.
You also got to play with your sister.
Yeah.
Like cross over with her, which ended up probably being a sweet thing.
That was fun.
Okay. And this is kind of the opposite. Like when you felt like you were kind of crying out to God, but then it was kind of a no, or maybe you don't understand this. And for me, this looked like when my friend Grant died, it was like crying out to God, like, save him. Why did you not save him? But he still died.
Yeah.
So it's still like, it's okay to cry out to God, and God answer our prayers in his plan still. So it's just kind of like, that's how I see it in my life, I think. But
that's what that looks like. Sorry, say the question again.
Okay.
I was listening to yes, thank you.
When you were praying, and it feels like you're either talking to a wall, feels like that prayer didn't get answered in the way you thought.
Yeah. Okay. So I have been praying for my family specifically, specifically my parents, and their relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to see when you're younger and you don't really have a relationship like that yourself yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But I'm obviously not married yet.
Right.
no ring on my finger yet. And they struggled. They weren't picture perfect as I grew up thinking they were.
Right.
And when I was praying about it, I felt like I was talking to a wall, because I didn't understand, and I didn't understand where the Lord was coming from, because I knew what Scripture said about marriage, but I never really dove into it because I'm not there in my point, like in my life yet. And I just felt like he didn't answer that prayer the way I wanted him to.
Right. Yeah.
But now, like literally a year later, he is answering that prayer just in a completely different way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. And it's like so hard in the moment, but just to like remove a little bit, it's like, oh, whoa, that's what you're doing, God. And ends up being like what I pray for isn't actually what I want.
Oh my gosh.
And it's hard to like say or think, but it's like, this is what I think I want, but then God does what he does. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's actually what I want. Right. Or that's what I needed, you know, but sometimes it's hard to see that.
It's so cool too when the Lord just like knows your heart, and your mind doesn't know it yet. Right. And then you see that and it's like, oh, okay.
And to remember that he knows me better than I know me. Yeah. Which is crazy. Or anybody else knows me. So it's like, I need to trust him.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question kind of together is just, what do you think why is there importance in praying with together? And then how have you kind of seen that bring like unity with people?
Yeah. Okay. So I think praying together is super important, but I also think having your own relationship with the Lord is equally as important.
Yes.
But praying together, I think it lets everyone know what's truly on your heart. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't say what's truly on your heart, I think that's where it gets a little tricky, and that's what's hard. Right. I used to be scared about praying in front of groups. Just thinking in my head. Yes, yeah. I used to be scared because I was always like, what if I don't say the right thing? Yeah. And then I just realized that there is no like wrong thing to say. Yeah. It's just that sometimes people are better at public speaking. That's the fact of it. Yes. And you just have to practice. Right. That's the end of the day. Yes. You just have to practice for it.
I like teach us like kids Sunday school class at my church, and that like had to bring them out of my comfort zone because I started praying there with them, and they're not going to judge me because they're in third grade.
Yeah, they don't know.
And so it was good practice to start having to do it, and then I would have to do it in front of FCA at school.
Yes.
And then like slowly, like I still get nervous, but it becomes more of like I'm going to talk to God And you guys can listen to me have this conversation and just seeing like the importance of like when, I don't know if y'all still do, but like before the games, would huddle up and pray together. And it was just sweet to like, maybe not everyone on the team's a believer. Yeah. And it's not forcing anybody to be a believer, but just to see it and witness it and see people like living out their faith in a practical way. But also prayer life is just as important behind the closed doors.
Oh, for sure.
If you're praying just to do big words and
be
like, wow, she's a good prayer. Then it's like, well, why are you praying? And so just like working on having a good prayer life behind closed doors.
For sure.
So then when you need to pray with somebody, you'll be prepared. Let the Lord speak through you.
Yes. 100% agree.
Thanks for coming on.
Of course. You're so sweet. I appreciate it. This is so fun.
Okay, thanks.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you for coming.
Of course.
And I hope this was encouraging just to see what prayer life looks like in another way, to see how God answers prayers, sometimes in the way you think and sometimes not in the way you think. But it's just important to talk to God and have that relationship with Him, because we have a personal relationship with Him. And it's so cool that we get to talk to the Creator.
Yes.
And He hears your prayers.
Yeah.
And so this is encouraging for me, and I hope it was for everyone else too.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening.